Before starting the story, I would like to say that 99% of you are not subscribers, while only 1% are. At 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories for you. Subscribe now.
The Martian sky was a palette of dusky oranges and muted reds as the sun dipped below the horizon of Echo Base, humanity's last stronghold and testament to their resilience. The base buzzed with activity, a frenetic symphony of clanging metal and hissing steam, all centered around the project that had become the focal point of human defiance and ingenuity, the Dreadnought. Chief Engineer Ava Zhao watched the flurry of activity from the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the colossal structure that lay in Hangar 4. The Dreadnought was a leviathan of steel and ambition, stretching over 2 kilometers long, encased in armor that glinted under the artificial lights. Its design was sleek, predatory, a stark contrast to the utilitarian constructions that typically characterized human engineering. Ava's comlink buzzed, snapping her out of her reverie. It was Dr. Emil Rourke, her mentor and the chief theoretical physicist of the project. "Ava, are you ready for tomorrow?" Emil's voice crackled through the speaker, his tone a mix of excitement and underlying concern. "As ready as we'll ever be," Ava replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "The propulsion tests went well, and the AI is finally syncing perfectly with the navigation systems." Good. But remember, it's not just about whether it can fly. It's about whether it should fly," Emil cautioned, a hint of his old fears seeping through. Ava frowned, turning to look at the sprawling form of the Dreadnought. "It has to, Emil. You know what's at stake." On the hangar floor below, teams of engineers and robotic units buzzed like bees around a hive, putting the final touches on the Dreadnought. The ship was designed to be more than just a vessel. It was a fortress capable of carrying a significant portion of the Martian colony's military might. Armed with railguns, ion cannons, and drone bays, it was capable of both offensive and defensive operations across interstellar distances. "Critics be damned," Ava muttered under her breath as she descended from the observation deck, her boots clanging on the metal stairs. "Too big to fly? We'll see about that." As she approached the main console, her team greeted her with nods and murmurs of respect. Ava had hand-picked her crew from the best the colonies had to offer: engineers, physicists, and even a few daring space pilots. They trusted her, not just to lead them, but to bring them back alive. "Let's do a final systems check," Ava announced, her voice echoing slightly in the vast hangar. Screens flickered to life, displaying lines of code and diagnostic readouts. Every system was green. The Dreadnought was as ready as it would ever be. Outside, Mars's 2 moons rose in the sky, casting a pale light over the red planet. The scene was picturesque, almost serene, but for Ava it was a stark reminder of their isolation. Earth was a distant memory, its blue oceans and green landscapes preserved only in old data files and the stories of the older colonists. Now their former home was under the control of the Solari, a ruthless alien race whose arrival had spelled disaster for human civilization. The Dreadnought was more than a ship. It was a symbol of hope, a behemoth clad in armor, ready to carry humanity back to their home, to reclaim what was theirs. "Tomorrow we fly," Ava said softly, almost to herself, as she looked up at the towering structure that dwarfed even the hangars built to house it. For Earth, for humanity. With that, the final preparations commenced, the last checks before they would see if the Titan could indeed soar. The night grew deeper, the work continued, and the heart of Mars beat with the promise of retribution and rebirth. Echo Base hummed with the energy of impending departure, and at the heart of it all, the Dreadnought stood ready, a giant against the stars, in the dim early hours of the Martian morning, with the vastness of the Dreadnought casting an imposing shadow across the hangar. Ava Zhao paced the length of the command center. Today was the day they would prove the naysayers wrong, the day the Dreadnought would either fly or fail spectacularly. Dr. Emil Rourke arrived just as the first hint of Mars's pale sun touched the horizon, his face drawn with worry. The older man clasped his hands behind his back, his gaze lingering on the screens displaying the Dreadnought's massive outline. "It's a behemoth, Ava," Emil commented, keeping his voice low. "Have we pushed too far this time? The theory is sound, but the practical—" His voice trailed off as he watched the simulation run through its final sequence. Ava stopped beside him, following his gaze. "Emil, we've been over this. The simulations confirm the propulsion can handle the mass, and the thrusters have been tested under double the expected load. It's ready." Emil sighed, rubbing his temples. "And what if you're wrong? What if it can't sustain flight?" "Then we learn, we adapt, and we try again. But I'm not wrong about this, Emil. It will fly." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Lucas Ward, the grizzled veteran in charge of Echo Base's defenses and the Dreadnought's future operations. The Admiral was a man of few words but immense presence, and as he approached, the room fell into a respectful silence. "Dr. Rourke, Chief Zhao." He nodded to each in turn. "Today we make history." Emil offered a tight smile, but Ava's response was a confident nod. The Admiral's faith in the project was a bolstering force, and his next words were meant to cut through any lingering doubt. "The Council is watching. Hell, the whole colony is watching. We've invested years into the Dreadnought, and not just in steel and circuits. Hopes, dreams, the future of our species. This ship carries it all. Zhao, make sure it flies." "I will, sir," Ava responded, her voice firm. As they prepared for the launch, skepticism hovered in the air, palpable among the crew and technicians. Whispered doubts mixed with overt criticisms had filtered down even to the hangar floor. "Too big to maneuver effectively in combat," some said. "A waste of resources," others argued. Yet every member of Ava's team worked with a heightened sense of purpose, driven by the belief instilled by their chief engineer. Ava spent the morning touring the Dreadnought one last time. She crawled through the access panels, double-checked the thruster alignments, and ran diagnostics on the artificial gravity units. Each system checked out, yet the gravity of their task weighed heavily on her. By midday, the preparations were complete. The command center was abuzz with activity as final clearances were issued. Ava took her place at the main console, her team arrayed around her, each member ready to play their part. "Commence countdown," she ordered, and the room's main screen flickered to life, displaying the timer. "T-minus 10 minutes, the automated voice announced, and around them the hangar began to tremble lightly as the Dreadnought's engines warmed up. Emil stood beside Ava, watching the readouts. "Ava, a moment?" he asked quietly. She stepped aside, turning to him with raised eyebrows. "Just be careful," he said after a moment's hesitation. "I know I've been cautious, perhaps too much so. But it's only because I believe so much in what you're doing. This ship, it's more than technology, it's our lifeline." Ava placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know, Emil, and thank you for everything." As they returned to their stations, the final seconds ticked down. The air was electric with anticipation and fear, a potent mixture that reflected the enormity of what they were about to do. 3, 2, 1, ignition. The Dreadnought roared to life, its engines a brilliant flare in the Martian dawn. As the behemoth slowly lifted from the ground, the triumph of the Dreadnought's liftoff reverberated through Echo Base, a beacon of human ingenuity and defiance against the vast, cold expanse of space. As the behemoth steadied itself in the low orbit of Mars, Ava Zhao's heart still pounded with the aftershocks of adrenaline. The Dreadnought was not just flying, it was soaring, its massive engines performing flawlessly under the red planet's thin atmosphere. In the command center, screens lit up with streams of data as the ship stabilized. Ava, still at the console, oversaw every function, from the minor adjustments in the thrusters to the calibration of life support systems. The initial cheers had faded, replaced by the focused, quiet murmur of her team at work. "Orbital path looks good. Engine output is steady at 95% efficiency," reported Lieutenant Shu, one of the Dreadnought's lead engineers. Ava nodded, her eyes scanning the diagnostics. "Let's keep it there. Prepare to initiate the second phase, deep space maneuvering trials." As Sue relayed the commands, Ava felt the gravity of their mission settle around her. The Dreadnought was not just a marvel of technology. It was the spearhead of humanity's hope to reclaim Earth, their home, lost 2 decades ago in a swift, brutal invasion by the Solari. The command center's doors hissed open, and Admiral Lucas Ward stepped in, his gaze fixed on the main screen displaying the Dreadnought's massive silhouette against the backdrop of Mars. "Report, Chief Zhao," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of his experience and the urgency of their plight. Ava turned, facing him squarely. "The Dreadnought is performing within all expected parameters, Admiral. We are ready to proceed with the deep space maneuvers." The Admiral nodded, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Proceed, and let's see what she can really do." With a deep breath, Ava gave the order. "Initiate deep space trial run, mark designation Alpha." The ship responded, its engines glowing brighter as it began to pull away from Mars's orbit. The crew at the command center watched in silent awe as the Dreadnought accelerated, its sleek, predatory form cutting through the cosmos. The trials were a series of rigorous tests designed to push the Dreadnought to its limits. Maneuvers to simulate evasive actions, speed tests to gauge its maximum velocity, and weapons trials that would test the might of its arsenals against the most durable of targets provided by the Mars colony. As the trials commenced, Ava monitored the ship's systems closely. The first test, a high-velocity maneuver to simulate an escape trajectory, was more aggressive than anything they had tried before. "Thrusters to maximum. Initiate rolling dodge sequence now," Ava instructed. The ship lurched, its massive body twisting elegantly in space, thrusters firing in controlled bursts to spin it along its axis. On the screens, the stars swirled in a dizzying dance, a testament to the ship's agility that many had thought impossible for its size. "System response is good. Structural integrity holding at 98%, Sue reported, relief evident in his voice. Admiral Ward, watching the display intently, finally allowed himself a small smile. "Impressive," he muttered. "She's as nimble as a cruiser." The final test of the day was the weapons trial. The Dreadnought's main cannons, capable of delivering devastating blasts, were aimed at a derelict satellite, a relic from the early days of Martian colonization. "Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The command center dimmed as the cannons charged, the energy drawing from the ship's core a spectacle of raw power. Then, with a burst of light that outshone the sun, the Dreadnought unleashed its fury. The satellite was obliterated, reduced to dust in a brilliant explosion that lit up the command center's screens. As the Dreadnought set its course away from Mars, its engines humming with newfound purpose, the crew settled into the routine of deep space travel. Their initial destination was not Earth, but the Kuiper Belt, where they planned to run the final series of weapon calibrations and drills, far from potential Solari surveillance. It was in this expanse of darkness, speckled with the distant sun's dimly lit icy bodies, that the Dreadnought would face its first real test. The quiet that had once filled the command center was replaced by a tense anticipation. Ava oversaw the coordination of the ship's drills, refining tactics and commands, her mind always calculating, always preparing. The thought of encountering the Solari hung over her like a specter, a constant reminder of the stakes. 3 days into their journey, the proximity alarms blared suddenly throughout the Dreadnought. The crew snapped to alertness, and Ava rushed to the main console, her heart racing. "Report!" she barked, her eyes scanning the incoming data. "We've got incoming. Small crafts, possibly scouts, emerging from the Oort cloud." Lieutenant Shu announced, his voice tense as he maneuvered the screens to display the trajectories of the approaching objects. Ava's mind raced. The Solari scouts were likely just a reconnaissance team, but where there were scouts, a larger fleet could soon follow. She made a snap decision. "Battle stations, prepare to engage. Sue, bring weapons online. I want full sensor sweeps now. Let's not get any surprises," she commanded, her voice echoing commandingly through the ship. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, securing their stations and arming the Dreadnought's extensive arsenal. The ship's main cannons were charged. The drone bays opened, releasing a swarm of surveillance and attack drones into the blackness of space. "Contacts in range in 3, 2, 1, Sue counted down, and then the void outside was lit by the brilliant flashes of the Dreadnought's first volleys. The enemy scouts, nimble and fast, darted through the darkness, their movements erratic and unpredictable. But the Dreadnought's AI-assisted targeting systems were designed for such adversaries. Every burst from its cannons was precise, calculated. The first scout disintegrated under the onslaught, a silent explosion of debris that sparkled like a deadly firework. The second and third scouts maneuvered to flank the dreadnought, their weapons charging for a retaliatory strike. "Evasive maneuvers, pattern Delta," Ava ordered. The ship lurched, its massive frame surprisingly agile as it dodged the incoming fire. The dreadnought's side cannons responded, a rapid-fire burst that took out another scout. Amidst the chaos, Ava remained focused, her commands clear and decisive. The crew responded to her every order with unwavering precision, their trust in her abilities complete. The final scout, damaged and desperate, made a kamikaze run toward the dreadnought's stern. Ava watched its approach, her mind already calculating the best course of action. "Brace for impact! All hands, secure stations!" she shouted. The scout collided with the dreadnought with a resounding crash, the impact shaking the ship despite its massive size. Damage reports flooded in, minor for the most part, but a reminder of the vulnerabilities they had yet to address. As the debris cleared and the last of the scout ships drifted lifelessly in space, the crew took a moment to breathe. The dreadnought had won its first skirmish, a small but critical victory. Ava turned to her crew, her expression stern yet approving. "Well done, everyone. Let's get damage control on those systems and prepare a full report. This was a skirmish, but it won't be the last. We need to be ready." As the crew set to work repairing and assessing, Ava stepped away from the console, her thoughts on the challenges ahead. The encounter with the Solari scouts had been unexpected. The dreadnought sailed through the black void, its engines humming a constant, vigilant pulse as it cut through the cosmos towards Earth. The skirmish in the Kuiper Belt had left the crew with a sobering understanding of their vulnerabilities and the relentless nature of their enemy, the Solari. Ava's mind, however, was occupied with another, more immediate problem: unexplained malfunctions that had begun to plague the ship. It started subtly, a flicker in the lighting system, a brief hiccup in the life support readouts, and a momentary lapse in the artificial gravity. These anomalies were initially dismissed as minor glitches typical of a new vessel, but when the navigation system momentarily displayed incorrect positioning, Ava's concern deepened. "Report," Ava demanded, striding into the main control room where Lieutenant Shu was monitoring the ship's systems. "Multiple system errors, Chief," Sue reported, his voice tense. "They're sporadic but increasing in frequency. Navigation, life support, even the weapon systems. I can't find the source." Ava's brow furrowed as she studied the readouts. The pattern was erratic, almost as if the ship itself was resisting their attempts to diagnose the problems. Could this be a cyber attack? Could the Solari have infected the dreadnought? Sue nodded gravely. "It's possible. We swept for malware pre-launch, but nothing's foolproof." Ava considered their next steps. "Initiate a full system diagnostic. Isolate the malfunctions. I want every data stream tagged and analyzed. We need to root out this ghost quickly." As the crew set to work, the dreadnought's AI, a sophisticated neural network named Ether, became increasingly erratic. Screens would flicker without cause, and commands issued to various systems were delayed or scrambled. Working closely with her software engineers, Ava began to dissect Ether's code, searching for anomalies. Hours turned into days, and the malfunctions grew worse, culminating when a thruster misfire altered their trajectory, nearly sending them into a gravitational slingshot around Neptune. "This is no glitch," Ava muttered, her eyes weary from hours staring at code and readouts. "Someone planted this, and it's meant to sabotage us." With few options left, Ava decided on a bold move. "We're going to hard reboot Ether, shut down to bare minimal life support and bring it back up clean. It's risky, but it might flush out whatever's causing this." The crew hesitated, aware of the dangers. A full reboot under these circumstances was akin to a reset in deep space, with only minimal systems running. Any miscalculation could leave them vulnerable to both the Solari and the merciless environment of space. With the decision made, Ava personally oversaw the process. As the main systems powered down, the ship was bathed in near-total darkness. The only sounds, the distant hum of the life support backups and the collective breath of the crew. Minutes passed like hours as the AI system shut down, its core processors cooling until they were brought back online in a careful sequenced startup. Ava watched, her finger always close to the manual override. Slowly, the lights flickered back on, and the screens lit up with the boot sequence. One by one, the systems came online: propulsion, life support, navigation, and finally, weapons systems. Everything appeared normal, but the real test was Ether's performance. "Run diagnostics," Ava instructed. The results came back clean. No errors, no malfunctions. The ghost in the machine seemed to have been exorcised. Relief swept through the control room, but Ava remained vigilant. "Keep monitoring all systems. I want updates every hour." As normalcy returned to the Dreadnought, Ava reflected on the vulnerability of their situation. The sabotage attempt, with the ghost in the machine exorcised, and the Dreadnought now steadily approaching the outer reaches of Earth's solar system. The mood among the crew shifted from one of tense vigilance to cautious optimism. The ship, a testament to human engineering and resilience, had proven itself capable not only in combat, but also in overcoming internal sabotage, whether by alien foes or as the residual effect of complex, emergent AI behaviors. Ava Zhao stood before the main viewport, her eyes fixed on the distant point of light that was Earth. The planet, once vibrant with life and color, now served as the battleground for humanity's survival against the Solari incursion. As they drew closer, strategic discussions took on new urgency. "We're entering contested space," Lieutenant Shu briefed as he displayed the tactical map on the main screen. "Solari patrols have been spotted in increasing numbers around the asteroid belt. Our approach won't go unnoticed." Ava nodded, absorbing the layout. "We'll need to navigate carefully, plot a course through the belt, use the asteroids as cover, prepare all hands for potential combat." The next few days tested the crew's endurance and the ship's capabilities as they maneuvered through the asteroid field. The Solari, aware of the new contender in their occupied territory, dispatched scout ships to intercept. The Dreadnought, however, proved a formidable opponent. Its cannons, guided by the refined targeting systems that Ava had insisted on, made quick work of the Solari scouts that dared to engage. But Ava knew the real challenge lay ahead: the Solari mothership, which orbited Earth like a dark moon, its presence a blight upon the horizon. As Earth came into view, a mix of emotions surged through Ava. The planet's blues and greens were muted, obscured by the scars of war, and the once white clouds now streaked with gray. But it was still Earth, still home, and the sight steeled her resolve. "Admiral Ward, we're approaching the final phase of our mission," Ava reported during their strategy meeting. "The mothership's defenses are formidable. We need a solid plan." Admiral Ward, his features set in grim determination, nodded. "We'll need a coordinated strike. The Dreadnought's weaponry is powerful, but we can't take the mothership head-on. We'll outmaneuver them, hit them where it hurts, and keep hitting them until they fall." The plan was risky, a complex dance of brute force and delicate timing. Ava spent hours with her team, simulating various scenarios, refining their tactics until they had a strategy that could realistically cripple the Solari Command Center. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The Dreadnought, concealed by a particularly large asteroid, powered down non-essential systems to minimize detection. Ava's voice was calm yet assertive over the comm. "All stations, this is it. Prepare to engage on my mark." With precise timing, the Dreadnought surged from its cover, its engines roaring to life as it barreled toward the Solari mothership. The enemy, caught off guard, scrambled to mount a defense. "Fire all cannons, launch drones, full assault," Ava commanded. The space between the two behemoths lit up with the fury of the Dreadnought's arsenal. Missiles and laser beams crisscrossed, creating a deadly ballet of high-velocity destruction. The mothership's shields flickered under the onslaught, buckling but not breaking. "They're tough," Sue remarked, monitoring the impact readings. "We're not done yet," Ava replied, eyes glued to the tactical display. "Prepare to execute Phase 2. On her command, the Dreadnought executed a daring flyby beneath the mothership, releasing a volley of drones that infiltrated the enemy ship's weaker underbelly. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, tearing through the hull. The mothership reeled from the internal blasts, its shields failing in areas as its own weapon. The Dreadnought, scarred but victorious, made its way toward the planet. Its mission was far from over, but they had achieved a significant victory this day. Earth's liberation was at hand, and Ava Zhao, at the helm of her indomitable ship, was ready to lead the final charge. For Earth, for humanity, the battle would continue until they were truly home. The Dreadnought, now just a short distance from Earth's atmosphere, braced for the final stage of its mission. The destruction of the Solari mothership had sent ripples through the alien ranks, creating chaos Ava intended to exploit. The path to Earth was clearer now, but not unguarded. Solari defense satellites and fighter patrols still orbited the planet, remnants of the once formidable invasion force. Ava stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the blue and green orb that was growing larger in their view. It was more beautiful than she remembered, and more heartbreakingly scarred. "This is it," she said to her crew. "We take back our home today." Admiral Ward nodded, his face set in a determined frown. "All hands, prepare for engagement. Target all Solari defenses. We clear a path to the surface." The crew was silent, knowing the task ahead would be the hardest yet. Ava initiated the attack sequence, and the Dreadnought began its descent toward Earth. Engagement. The first wave of Solari satellites targeted them with ion cannons, which flared against the Dreadnought's shields like sparks against stone. Ava ordered return fire, and the Dreadnought's railguns answered, tearing through the nearest satellite with precise, devastating impacts. "Keep pressing," Ava commanded, her voice calm but forceful over the roar of battle. The ship shuddered as it bore the brunt of enemy fire, but it held firm, cutting a swath through the Solari's orbital defenses. Drones swarmed from the Dreadnought's bays, a cloud of silver that met the Solari fighters head-on. The clash was violent, a dance of dodging and weaving as both sides vied for the upper hand. The descent. As they cleared the last of the satellites, Earth's gravity took a firmer hold, pulling the Dreadnought into its embrace. Ava felt the familiar heavy pull beneath her feet, a reminder of the planet that was once her cradle. "We're being hailed," Lieutenant Shu said, his voice tense. Ava turned to the screen, seeing the crackled image of a Solari commander. "Human vessel, you have no hope of reclaiming this world. Surrender and be spared." Ava's response was curt. "We come for our home, not mercy. Disengage or be destroyed." The transmission cut off with a hiss, and the battle resumed with renewed ferocity. The Dreadnought plunged through the atmosphere, its cannons never silent, meeting the pockets of resistance with unyielding force. The final stand. As they approached the surface, the real battle began. Solari ground forces were entrenched around major strongholds, their anti-air defenses locking onto the descending Dreadnought. "Deploy ground units," Ava ordered, and squads of mechs and armored vehicles were launched from the Dreadnought's lower bays, descending in pods toward the strategic locations marked on Ava's map. She then piloted the Dreadnought closer, providing aerial support as her ground forces engaged the enemy. The ship's massive cannons boomed, each shot echoing like thunder across the battlefield. The Solari were relentless but disorganized. The destruction of their mothership had fractured their command structure, and they fought in desperate, chaotic clusters. It was an advantage Ava did not waste. With precise maneuvers and coordinated strikes, the Dreadnought and its forces systematically dismantled the Solari's defenses. Ava watched as, one by one, the enemy strongholds fell, their lights winking out like snuffed candles. Ava knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but as she watched Earth rotate slowly below her, she felt a profound connection to the place and to the people she had led back to their rightful home. "For Earth, for humanity," she murmured, turning back to her crew, ready to face whatever came next, together. And with that, the Human Dreadnought, a symbol of resilience and hope, stood ready to defend Earth, to help rebuild what was lost, and to ensure that never again would humanity's light be dimmed by invaders. For in the vast, uncharted expanse of space, this ship was their fortress, their champion, and their home.